It's Violet Lisnicka with Show House Properties at Keller Williams Platinum Partners, and thanks for joining me today for this week's What's Up Wednesday. And today I'd like to go over something that does happen in today's market, and that is when you're selling a property and you have multiple offers to choose from. Sometimes it could only be two, sometimes it's more than that. And so many times when I'm in the situation with my sellers will say, well, Violet, what's the difference? I mean, it's all about price, right? Well, not really, because there's a lot of different provisions and a lot of terms within our sales contract. And so there's many things to take a look at, and today I'd like to give you my top 6 that I always pay attention to first and foremost before I go on to any of the other provisions. So the first one is personal property. So for example, is the buyer perhaps requesting that the seller leave some sort of personal property that maybe the seller didn't originally plan on leaving with the property, right? And maybe that has to be taken into consideration. The second thing is closing cost credits. It's very common for buyers in today's market to request that the seller pay the buyer's closing costs, which generally includes their lender fees. So we take a look at that. We take a look at the amount of that closing cost credit if that is requested. The third item that I like to take a look at is earnest money. So, typically the standard earnest money amount is anywhere from 1, it could be up to 2.5% of the purchase price, although there is no set guideline. But it's kind of an industry standard, and so I take a look to see, okay, well, how much is the earnest money? Is it just the bare minimum? Is it slightly higher than what the industry standard considers as being the standard? Because then that gives me, okay, well, what is their purchasing power with that initial deposit? The fourth thing that I take a look at is closing date. So typically the standard is anywhere from 30 to 45 days. If I see a closing date that is longer than 45 days, right away my question is why? And so I go back to the buyer's agent, buyer's representative, and ask and get more clarity on that, right? So that I can have that conversation with my seller. The fifth item that I take a look at is financing, because that shows me the buyer's financial strength. So I compare the buyer's financial strength to the offers that we have at hand, that the seller and I are evaluating to see which one is the strongest offer and which offer is ultimately going to get us to the closing table. So in terms of financing, I take a look at what is the down payment. Is it an FHA loan? Is it a conventional financing? What is their, the maximum interest rate? We take a look at all of these things to determine the buyer's financial strength and capability in order to have a chance of getting this place sold and get to the closing table. And finally, the last thing I take a look at, more importantly over any of the other terms, is whether or not the buyer is coming in with either a home to sell contingency or a home to close contingency. And basically what that means is the buyer has to sell their primary residence in order to purchase my seller's property. So we take a look at all of that, again, to determine, well, which offer is ultimately going to get us to the closing table. So I hope that gives you a little bit of insight in terms of multiple offers, and of course call me with any information or any clarity that you need on that. We'll streamline the process for you, and anytime you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, make sure you give me a call, 847-722-2302, or you can email me at violet@myshowhouse.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.